Hello and welcome back to Rage Gaming. My name is Olo and welcome to the new Diablo 4 patch. As of June 27th, as we predicted and hoped and prayed for, it's finally here. The buff patch is here. Across the board, a load of issues have been fixed, a load of gameplay changes, a lot of nice improvements, as well as major buffs and changes to the base game and specifically classes. Now, I am a Necromancer main. I've been playing Necromancer since the beginning of Diablo 4. And so today I'm going to go through those Necromancer patch changes, look at each individual thing and give my opinion on it. And through this quick video, basically you should know what's big, what's exciting, the most relevant changes for Necromancer. We'll start from top to bottom, following it as it is officially listed, which means we begin with Reap. The basic attack that has you cleave with a scythe has now been buffed to deal 1% more damage. This is a irrelevant buff and will not really mean anything. It's good for the ability, but as one of the most popular basics anyway, we won't really care. The main reason we were using Reap was for the enhancement Acolyte's Reap, which has been buffed. Guaranteed spawning a corpse every 5 seconds when you use it, down to every 4 seconds. A minor but relevant buff. Not exactly a major change, but a good one for a popular basic attack. Next is Decompose. This is the one where you target and channel dealing damage, and through that basic ability, we were able to form corpses. As you can see, previously at 2.5 seconds, down to 2 seconds. That's a nice buff. Compared to Reap, every 4 seconds you'll be generating 2 corpses to Reap's 1. This alone doesn't excite me enough to say Decompose is definitely better than Reap, but because of a different change down in the patch notes we're going to get to, well, Decompose is indeed looking good, and we'll get to that. Next for the basics, we have a Hemorrhage buff. This is the commonly used for blood builds basic attack, dragging health away from the enemy, and with the passive, turning into an AoE. As base damage was increased from 25% to 27%, which is going to be noticeably nice for that AoE version, and the essence generation is up from 8 to 9. Not a major increase, but still good for the AoE version. Considering this is a basic you would use with, say, blood builds, not a bad pickup, but also not a major buff either. The last basic change is Bone Splinters, which we were using in many bone-based builds, thanks to the way you can enhance it to make your critical strike chance go up. Its damage was increased by 1%, which is pretty irrelevant, and its essence generation is up from 6 to 7, which is a nice change. Unexpected but appreciated. That's arguably one of the best, if not the best, basic, and it getting better is certainly not a bad thing for Necromancers. But now we come to the core skills, where we see 2 core skills being buffed that we fully expected to see: Sever and Bloodlance. Starting with Sever, the initial base damage is increased by 3%, not major but nice, but then the enhanced version's return base damage has nearly doubled in damage, which is major. The Sever build was never a top tier meta build in my opinion, just below that where it just doesn't really compete. With this change, I think it might actually stand to be up there now. So I'm looking forward to giving it a try and making a build around this and seeing how this new change feels. Next we have Bloodlance, which was the worst core skill previously. So to see that get a buff is great, but to see only one line is concerning. Supernatural Bloodlance's overpower requirement is now down from 8 to 6 casts. Now blood builds are all about overpower. It's even their key passive. Whether it's Blood Surge or Bloodlance, there's a way to make it, as you can see, basically guarantee overpower. Say with Blood Surge, that was on the 5th cast, you would get the overpower. Weird to see that it was so high with Bloodlance, previously at 8, but bringing it down to 6 is obviously a big deal. Then bringing it down by only 2 though says to me that actually this is going to be pretty decent damage in terms of overpower, and there's potential with Bloodlance here. Have they done enough? Well, on paper, that looks like no to me, but it's one that I reckon we'll need to test and actually check before we truly know. Next, the funny one, Bone Prism. I would use this with my Bone Spear build. Its cooldown is down from 20 seconds to 18. Nice, but not that relevant. Dreadful Bone Prism's Fortify increased from 5% to 8%. That's quite nice, a big improvement to the Fortify. Not really a major buff for this, but I also wasn't expecting it to get a buff, so it is good. What desperately and certainly needed a buff was Iron Maiden. Its base damage has been doubled from 10% to 20%. Previously, this was just an irrelevant skill, and now I'm not sure whether anything has changed. Horrid Iron Maiden, the enhancement, that damage bonus is up from 15 to 20%, so they've obviously improved the competitiveness of this cursed skill. My question is, when are you ever going to take Iron Maiden over Decrepify? You are not going to do that. Will you take Decrepify and Iron Maiden now? I'm not convinced, but further testing needed as always. Just because it reads poorly on paper doesn't mean it is poor in play. They're the ones testing this, so hopefully they know what they're doing. Corpse Tendrils. Blight Corpse Tendrils is one of the enhancements, and it causes blood orbs to spawn at a 30% rate, which is a lot when you're pulling, a lot of enemies in at once with packs of enemies, which you should be. That has a 5% buff from 30% to 35% chance to spawn blood orb. That will be nice for your unique chest piece that spawns completely free bone spirits when you pick up between 5 and 10 blood orbs. Blood orbs also give a lot of healing, can give you overshield, you could work with temerity. Blood orbs increase your damage when picking up with certain passives. They're a very good thing. So a way to guarantee them to spawn more is good, but when are you going to take that over guaranteed vulnerability in AoE? I still think that's a hard sell. But with blood builds, maybe, and you're seeing them buff them in different ways. Moving on, we have Bone Spikes, which is a weird one. This is your mount ability. It's literally just, you've been mounted for a bit, now you have your mount ability, you press it, you demount with an attack, it doesn't deal that much damage. Well, now its damage is increased by 40%, so maybe it'll deal like anything compared to like basically nothing, but that's not, I don't know, it just doesn't seem enough. Not that relevant, not that big of a deal whether they crazy buffed it or mega nerfed it anyway. Here's a big one, skeleton and golem related. Minions will now always engage targets with a cast curse. Wow, there it is. Actual mechanical improvements to minion builds, which are sorely lacking on mechanics. They're counterproductive. Even if the minions were absolutely slaying in damage, which they certainly don't, they spread all of the enemies around, and it's really infuriating. What about that one really dangerous elite, or say the suppressor? You need your minions to go burst that one down, focus that guy down, and there's no way for you to control them. Really lacking quality of life for Necromancer, one of the biggest complaints for sure for the class. Now, you can specifically curse targets, and minions will focus those ones. Awesome. You are able to intentionally decrepify targets to get your minions to attack them now. My criticism for this concept is that I decrepify everything always because I want the CDR and potential stun, so this doesn't really help with that because I'm spreading it around. But it does mean if I really want to kill one specific target, I can intentionally decrepify them and not anything else, and my minions will attack it. It's at least something, but would it really be that hard to say just give us a button like F or T or something to pick a target your minions all single attack at once? I think we have the technology for that, but hey, this is something. Next up, we have the passives, which actually targets two specific key passives. Kalen's Edict. This is the one that basically means if you don't take damage for 3 seconds, your minions get 15% attack speed, but if you have 7 or more, which you should always have 7 or more, it's actually 30%. Awkward because, yeah, you're going to take damage. There's passives that mean you need to stay healthy for a while, which is 80% or higher, but this is straight any damage taken. So no amount of mitigation or reduced damage will stop this, meaning you need barriers, I guess, for this to actually work. That is awkward. I think this should be reworked. To take it from 3 seconds to 2 seconds is an improvement, but the fact that it's any damage taken, I just think is terrible, and I'm still probably going to be leaning on Shadow Blight as a much better key passive, which is dumb. So this is a disappointment to me on paper, but we'll see. Rathna's Vigor, though, very interesting. This is how you get a free overpower on your blood abilities every 15 seconds by staying healthy. You want to overheal, you want to shield and all that with blood builds, so this happens basically every 15 seconds. You get to do a really hard-hitting, probably blood surge. Now it's every 12 seconds. A very nice buff and potentially very impactful. What I would like to see instead of 15 to 12 seconds was maybe 10 seconds, but I'll take anything I can get. We'll see if it's relevant. The other passive we have is not actually a key passive, it's just one for Thorns, the spiked armor one, 0.8, 0.16, 0.24 to 0.1, 0.2, 0.3. A pretty relevant buff in terms of how much Thorns you get per level, which is nice for the potential of Thorn builds, but we're still not really seeing those in any relevance, so not sure that's going to be, much of an increase or enough for that. Then at the bottom, we have 3 legendary aspect changes to what were pretty irrelevant aspects for the Necromancer. So first is Bursting Bone. This is tied to Bone Prism, which was also buffed earlier as we read. Basically, when a section of Bone Prism is destroyed, it would burst out a pretty irrelevant, pathetic amount of damage, not really worthy of an aspect slot, that's for sure. That damage has been increased to essentially double, which is certainly nice. Is it going to be enough? Still probably no, I just can't see it. On paper, even the double damage is not really going to be enough to lose what you'd have to give up as a comparison. Next is Flesh Rending, which is actually very exciting. This is the aspect I referred to earlier when we were talking about decompose. Essence gained increased from 10 to 20 to 20 to 40. This means every time you spawn a corpse with decompose, you actually get 20 to 40 essence. 40 essence every time you spawn a corpse. This aspect is one that you would have on a ring. It can go on nothing else. It's literally one of the resource aspects. So considering that the damage of decompose is up, the essence base level is up, and then it's actually spawning a corpse every 2 seconds now, which again is, 2 corpses to the 1 reap every 4 seconds, and you're potentially getting 40 essence every 2 seconds with that in mind. This could be major for, say, a Bone Spirit build that's very expensive on essence, or any build that really wants to have a lot of essence. That makes that basic actually very relevant and gives the Necromancers a new way to generate their resource in a consistent way. Actually, pretty exciting. Finally, the last change is Fast Blood. Another one that goes on your rings only. Previously, it would be half a second or 1 second off your ultimate cooldown every time you pick up a Blood Orb. Now, it's 1 to 1.5, and few people were using this when you're using a Blood Orb related build, so pulling your ultimate cheaper, which is going to be Bone Storm because there's no other viable or relevant ultimate right now, and they've not buffed any of the ultimates, so that's not changed. This is actually really good for the Blood build. Is Blood Spear relevant now? Hard to say, but Blood Surge certainly is. With Fast Blood, you'll be able to pretty much consistently have your Bone Storm ready and going for the massive crit and damage increase. You'll have an overpower every 12 seconds now compared to every 15. And I guess if we're getting vulnerability from another source, we have a even bigger increase of Blood Orbs from the Blight Corpse Tendrils. That's interesting and further really hopeful for Blood builds. But sadly, that's the end of the notes and updates for Necromancer. What's my conclusion from this? I'm going to say sadly that the people hoping minion builds would be much more relevant in this buff patch. We haven't got what we wanted. We have slightly better control over our minions, which is certainly nice, but when you're spamming Decrepify on all targets, it's not going to work how they might imagine. And Kaelin's Edict, I'm still not convinced by, because it's damage taken rather than whether you're healthy or not. They have not given minions a competitive nature versus sacrifice benefits, which are insane still. Basically, it's a minor improvement that I'm not exactly thrilled by. So that's disappointing, but on the other side, blood builds are on the menu. That's very exciting with all the overpower, cooldown reduction, and potential benefits of all of that. Sever builds are clearly on the rise, but how big of a rise based on that singular buff, we're gonna have to see. And wow, Decompose is suddenly a top tier way to spawn corpses and generate loads of essence instead of having to, say, rely on the umbral aspect many classes rely on. Exciting, very interesting to see. We're going to begin our testing and actually come back with, actual results of these things. So look out for updated builds and exciting new stuff for Necromancers. I hope this video was useful to you. For now then, I've been Hollow, you've been you. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.